The Conservation Amendment Bill is the largest conservation reform in nearly 40 years. It's passed its first reading with full coalition support. It was pitched by the government as a modernisation, aiming to simplify and speed up DOC decision making and reduce fragmented planning and create sustainable funding. The original proposal made it easier to sell, swap or dispose of conservation land, affecting up to 60% of the conservation estate. It has removed the long-standing test that land has to be of no or very low conservation value before sale, replacing it with a weaker threshold. It has expanded eligible land to include conservation and forest parks. It's added a new DOC function to recognise economic opportunities from conservation land and enable that use to the greatest extent possible. The original proposal made it much easier to sell, swap or dispose of public conservation land, affecting up to 60% of the conservation estate. It's removed the long-standing test that land has to be of no or very low conservation value before sale, replacing it with a weaker threshold. It's expanded eligible land to include conservation and forest parks. It's added a new DOC function to recognise economic opportunities from conservation land and enable that use to the greatest extent practicable. Finally, it's introduced visitor amenity areas for recreational commercial development, an international visitors access levy predicted to earn $60 million a year for DOC, and concentrated more decision-making power with the Minister whilst reducing the role of the New Zealand Conservation Authority. The government's core premise for this bill is that economic development and conservation don't always sit in opposition. They can be complementary rather than zero-sum. The status quo gives DOC no real mechanism to weigh economic benefits at all. The new economic mandate clause is meant to fill that gap, not override conservation. The government's also added a sustainable funding rationale, maintaining world-class visitor experiences and protecting heavily visited areas costs money, and that shouldn't fall on taxpayers alone. Hence the $60 million a year visitor levy, with land disposal proceeds also earmarked for DOC. The government aims to increase efficiency and modernisation. A single national conservation policy statement replaces current scattered regional documents with a statutory framework to speed up planning. The most controversial part of this bill, the land sales, are aimed at genuinely low value or redundant land. Tama Potaka used Wellington's Met Service Office as an example, while Shane Jones said people accepted disposing of redundant pieces of land. Potaka rejected the big sell-off framing as a myth, saying that's not what National is about. Now, as you would have seen on social media, this bill has been extremely controversial. Critics argued it reframed DOC from a protection agency into an economic development agency, inverting the traditional hierarchy of conservation first, recreation second, and commercial use last. Forest and Bird has produced maps showing large areas exposed to sale or development and has warned that New Zealanders would be furious. Concern over reduced public oversight and ministerial concentration of power has also surfaced. Furthermore, many communities are frustrated as some of this at-risk land has been publicly fundraised and gifted to the Crown, such as Lewis Pass Beach Forest. Recreation lobbies such as Federated Mountain Clubs and Fish and Game organised a joint submission defending recreation's place ahead of commercial use. As a result of this controversy, last Thursday, the 26th of July, Potaka announced he would ask Cabinet to drop the land sale clauses and add better safeguards, saying that the government had heard and listened to New Zealanders. He framed the original scope as having caused uncertainty, concern and ambiguity. NZ First's Shane Jones backed the move, conceding the scope had been far too much for the broader community to swallow. The driver was this public pressure, tens of thousands of submissions and sustained campaigning from Greenpeace, Forest and Bird and more. This change represents the second backdown on environmental legislation this year as a result of public backlash.